Hi, I'm Bob,
And I'm Sherry.
and this is Mostly Politics with Bob and Sherry.
And today we're interviewing Mr. Steve Irwin, who was the candidate for Congressional District number 24?
12.
12. Okay,
12.
we doubled it.
You seem very involved with the Anti Defamation League. Can you tell us about the ADL and your involvement?
Sure, Bob. First of all, thank you both for having me on your podcast. It's a great podcast. It's important for people who are engaged and want to be engaged, have the chance to meet people who have done that, and find ways to participate in our system. I'm Jewish, and I grew up and was the victim of anti-Semitism as a kid. I was the only Jew in my one of two in a seventh grade class of 700 kids. And my Jewishness was somehow everyone in my neighborhood figured out that I was Jewish. And so we suffered property damage, violence, and epithets and other, we were ridiculed in other ways. And so I was very aware of my Jewishness. And from an early age, appreciated the importance of the separation of church and state. And fighting against hate in all forms, including anti-Semitism. And the Anti Defamation League that's what its mission is to fight bigotry in all forms against the Jewish people and all people. So as I became older, I got involved in the ADL. It's a wonderful organization, and it fights anti-Semitism and hate through education, through engaging with law enforcement, by infiltrating hate groups, by watching them very, very closely, being a real watchdog for hate activity. And in that way, it's been able to prevent a number of violent attacks. Obviously, we're recording this only 2 days after what happened in Highland Park in Illinois. Really tragic, and it probably won't be long until the next attack. So I'm glad to be involved with the Anti Defamation League. Right now, I was an associate national commissioner, and I'm a member of the board of directors for this part of the country, which is Cleveland, not Ohio, and Kentucky, and West Virginia, and Western Pennsylvania. Which actually in Western Pennsylvania is really the heart of a lot of hate activity, sadly. So we're very active in monitoring that activity.
Since you mentioned Highland Park, I haven't been following it closely. Was there a anti-Semitic connection to that?
Well, they haven't arrived at a motive yet for this young man who's alleged to have committed the crime, which is just horrific. But Highland Park is much like Squirrel Hill, very Jewish neighborhood. There were anti-Semitic flyers that were distributed and disseminated there just a couple months ago. Apparently, this young man was involved in that. His activity online suggests that certainly hate generally, whether he was targeting the people he was shooting at, we don't know that yet. But it certainly seems to be a crime motivated by hate. And it's just hard to read about the people who were killed and those who were attacked and everyone who just witnessed it, who will never forget it. As we know in Squirrel Hill, where I live, as a former member of the Tree of Life, very involved there, and everyone is only 1 degree of separation from the 11 people who were murdered.
Yeah, when that happened, it really deeply affected me because that's the temple my father-in-law belonged to, and then it helped bury him when he passed away. So yeah, it was horrific. When you said the ADL work with law enforcement, how does that work? What's the mechanism behind that?
Yeah, the ADL has a great relationship with the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and shares with the FBI its research on these hate groups. The ADL monitors the activity on social media and on websites, and really tries to understand the thinking and the people who are involved, and shares that to the extent that it can with law enforcement.
Okay. So recently, the CEO of LDL was in Congress or Senate, I think it was in a hearing, and he was calling out people on the far right and the far left for increasing anti-Semitism. Is there a reason why? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, Jonathan Greenblatt, I got to know Jonathan during the events here in Pittsburgh. He came to Pittsburgh the next day, and I've since been able to develop a real relationship with him. I think he's an extraordinary leader of the Anti Defamation League, having succeeded Abe Foxman, who really was the face of ADL for so many years. I think what Jonathan's trying to say is that, look, anti-Semitism knows no bounds. It cuts across all demographics. It cuts across all people, whether and the political spectrum. You can find people who have prejudice, who have biases. We all have bias, implicit or otherwise, and we need to recognize them and not accept them, and work to understand them and know that our reactions to certain things are guided by things that maybe we control and some that are subconscious. But when you take people on the far left and the far right, very often those folks are not willing to engage with each other. And so you can't just have the middle driving our political dialogue. It's driven by all, but we have to be willing to talk to each other. And that's why it's both, I think he pointed out, to the left and the right as being less willing to have those kinds of conversations with each other.
Now, I reviewed the 2021 audit from the ADL, at least the executive summary, and it mentions far right or white supremacist groups, I think they call them, 18% of incidents. But I didn't see any other groups named. But I think in May, they showed a huge spike in incidents and connected that with the Hamas and Israel. So I was just curious why there was, white supremacist groups called out, but not any other kind of ideologies or anything.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I would encourage you to have James Pash, who actually is a member of the city council in a Cleveland suburb, and he's also the executive director of the Anti Defamation League for this part of the world, and he really knows that on a level that I think he can speak to it much better, and he'd be a wonderful guest. I encourage you to have him.
Okay, great.
Oh, that would be great.
Yep.
Thanks.
Sure.
And then now from your bio, we can see that you have a extensive resume with working with government, and you have worked in the government at a time that this country was not divided. What are your thoughts and opinions on why the country is so divided right now, and we will ever have unity? You mentioned a little bit before the far right and the far left. Seems like there's just no more voice for people that are more moderate on both sides.
Yeah, Sherry, that's a great question. And I worked in the United States Senate. That was my first job after college for 6 years. I worked at a time when the Republican Party and the Democratic Party really did things in a bipartisan way. I think that there's a number of explanations for that. I don't know if there's any one thing that we can point to. I can say that the Republican Party today is not the Republican Party that it was in the 1980s, 1990s. George Bush kind of Republicans, Arlen Specter kind of Republicans, people who were willing to engage in dialogue and get things done. Now we have a wing of the Republican Party controlled by former President Trump. So there's that aspect, which is, the Republican Party is splintered, and there's a part of it which we don't really understand. So it's hard to know who you're negotiating with and who you're dealing with. And there's the Republicans who want to understand that the leadership of Trump is dangerous, or afraid to speak out against him because he has so much power, which really leads to a main difference from when I was working in Congress to today, which is we didn't really have social media, and we had newspapers that were with journalists who had certain standards when they reported. They investigated facts, they confirmed facts, and we were dealing with a common set of facts, and we don't anymore. People can write anything, say anything, and it's taken as true, and they point to it as justification for the positions they take, which are self-serving, and that's really, I think, our biggest problem. Until we can all agree what the facts are, we can't find what the solutions are.
What's interesting, we've mostly interviewed Republicans, and they kind of say the same thing. They say the Democrat Party is far, far left, and it's not the same old Democrat Party. And even, the same issue about there's no trustworthy, news source and that kind of thing. But, I mean, you made a good point. If we could all agree on what the facts are, that would at least be a starting point. But everybody has a different reality.
Look, we're not always going to get the perfect solution, but we have to at least move the ball forward. We have to make change and move in a positive direction, and be willing to be critical of what we're doing and say it's not working, and veer to another direction and find other solutions. And that's a dialectic that has to happen. And if we're just going to do nothing, then we're not going to get anything done.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So is that what motivated you to run for Congress, to be a more sensible voice?
I was motivated to run for Congress for a number of reasons. I mean, first of all, I love Pittsburgh. I love this region and the people of this region and the geography and the places and history. And I care very much about its future. It's a place that continually reinvents itself. And, I want to be part of creating that future. That's number one.
So what motivated you to run for Congress?
Well, Sherry, there are a number of things. But first of all, the job itself made a lot of sense to me because it spoke to my experience having worked in Washington. And, I love policy, and I've worked in government for a long time. And the kinds of things that I think are wrong with this country and need great attention, like healthcare, like infrastructure, like civil rights, are things that we can address in Congress. But also, I really felt I love Pittsburgh. It's where I've lived longer than anywhere else in my life, and I raised my family here, and I have kids who I feel an obligation to show them that they have as citizens a responsibility to step up and try to solve the problems that we have and to provide for them. And I don't have any grandchildren yet. I've got grandcats, but I want to be able to make sure that they have the same opportunities that I've had in my life. And so I did it in that way. And finally, to get things done. We're at this critical juncture in the history of our country, and we have real problems. We need people with experience and the desire to bring people together, because no one person has all the answers. We have to get everyone at the table, and that's the way I've behaved my whole life, and it made a lot of sense for me to do that.
So in the primary, you had the party endorsement. You barely, barely lost, less than 1%. You lost to Summer Lee. And she referred to her win as proof that Democrats don't have to be represented by go along and get along folks. Would that make you a go along, get along folk?
Yeah, I don't know what that means, really. I mean, I don't know if she was pointing at me. I think I'm not sure what that means. What I do know is that we all have to come together to solve the problems that we face in this country. That, the Democratic Party can't be a party of exclusion. It has to be a big tent and bring everybody in, from the far left to the moderates and people who think, and people who are the workers, the working families in this country, who are many of whom are maybe Democrats in name only, and don't feel as if we as a party are doing what we've historically done to provide for working people. So we need to bring everybody to the table to find these solutions, and we have to register people as Democrats, and we have to make sure that they get out and vote. I've offered to Summer to help. I think that I want her to be successful, and I want to be part of that solution.
So, as you mentioned, I talked to some of the Democrats, in the older people in the Democratic Party. Their feeling is as they're being pushed out by the younger, more progressive Democrats. It seems like the far right and the far left are the loudest people, and they both sides want to implode the party or the country and rebuild. And there's voice in the middle that just can't get out. So what are your thoughts on that? What do you think would be the solution to bring everybody together?
Well, first, I think locally here in Allegheny County, we just elected a new chair and vice chair. Morgan Overton is vice chair, uh, and oh my God, Sam Hens Greco as our chair.
Yeah.
And that's just great. I think that they have a lot of energy and commitment, and I know Sam and Morgan from having been a committee person for a long time in the 14th Ward, working with Sam from Morganton. Morgan, I've known her through work I've done as a leader at the Jewish Healthcare Foundation, Pittsburgh Regional Health Initiative, where she was employed. I think they have tremendous potential to really reinvigorate the party. I do think that the people who who've been in the party over the last 30, 40 years um, are did great things. I mean, Pittsburgh is a much better place today than it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and we've come a long way. And there's no reason to exclude those folks as we move forward. We have to, if we don't know the mistakes that we've made in the past, we're condemned to repeat them. So we need to listen to the wisdom of those who've been here before. Again, no reason to exclude. Let's include. Let's bring people together of all ages, of all demographics, of all races, creeds, nationalities, neighborhoods, geographies, to make the party as strong in the region as strong as we possibly can. Having said that, uh, there are people who are looking at different ways to do primaries, to have them be open primaries. I'm not sure what direction the party's going to go in terms of endorsements and non-endorsements. I think again, if everyone has all the information, pays all the attention, they can make good decisions on their own. But very often people look to others who've spent months and months getting to know candidates, getting to know their strengths, their backgrounds, their histories, their abilities to get things done. And so that's an important role that the members of the party play potentially. So I just hope we can, again, be inclusive, register more Democrats, have civil, constructive discourse, do things based on a set of common facts, and move this country forward and this region forward.
I wanted to ask about the worker shortage. Their Democrats advocated for several years to raise the minimum wage to $15. It's, $15 an hour jobs are now plentiful, but yet it seems like every industry, everywhere we go, there's a worker shortage. Stores are reducing hours, restaurants are closing days, and I'm surprised every day when I realize how many industries it's affecting. I mean, what do you think's causing that, and what would you do about it?
Well, Bob, it's a great question, and certainly when you can make $19 at McDonald's, that says a lot when people aren't going for those jobs. Uh, I think in the long term, people are going to have to work, but in the short term, we're at this very uncertain times. There's a lot of uncertainty, so the people hiring are expecting more from fewer people. They don't know whether the pandemic is going to shut them down again. Can they make those investments? It's hard. Remote work is a new thing, and people have appreciated the flexibility it gives them in caring for themselves and their parents and their children and their neighbors. And they don't want to go to jobs where they're stuck to having to show up between this hour and that hour. They can be efficient if they're given the flexibility. And we have many people who, with the pandemic, just had enough. They're retiring earlier than they might have otherwise. We're also sort of stuck with our immigration policy in this country. So we have many fewer immigrants now than we have historically. So, and those immigrants often fill jobs that others may not have found as, they were hungrier and may have taken jobs that were less pleasant. So I think that there's a lot of factors that are contributing to this. I think $15 minimum wage is not extensive by any means. We have to give people the tools to go to work, childcare, and the support they need to be able to, and the flexibility. So women who this often falls on to care for their families makes it harder for them to enter the workforce. So they weigh those costs. Does it make sense to go to work? So that's something that Congress and people, our local elected leaders, are going to have to figure out and have to pay attention to. The future of work is something that we need to think about. It's just not going to happen. And so
So
that's my
a
thought.
lot of factors, no like one answer. Yeah, it makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
And I want to ask about the healthcare. You know, every administration, Republican or Democrat, talked about affordable healthcare, but it just seems like nothing gets accomplished. The healthcare gets more and more expensive. Not we even have a nurse shortage. We have doctor shortage. Why do you think? And you worked in government before. Why can you tell the folks that from your experience, why is this such a tough subject to make the healthcare more affordable in this country?
Well, people love their doctors. People love their health care. They like to go to the doctor. It's expensive, and it's more expensive here than most any place else in the country, in the world. We spend more on healthcare than most countries, and our outcomes aren't the best. They're not on par. So we've got a problem, and the causes of this are manyfold, but some of them include the fact that we the administrative costs, the cost of insurance, the cost of advertising, the cost of paperwork. Um, those are very extensive in our healthcare system in this country compared to other countries where they have government healthcare or single payer healthcare. We can reduce those administrative costs. We have, this healthcare is something I've had a lot of experience in. I'm not a doctor, and I don't even play one on TV, but my daughter is a physician, and I've been a patient. I've had some real health issues in the course of my life, and my family's. So I have quite a bit of experience with the healthcare system, and I've also done a lot in the policy side and as a lawyer. So I know that we need to move toward population health, toward a system that has everybody in the pool. That will reduce the cost for everybody. We have to make decisions as a population so we can be better at addressing things like pandemics. We have to limit the number of really high cost procedures that are done at times. We have to negotiate better prices for pharmaceuticals and for healthcare. People play different things in different systems, and you have a lot of monopolies in healthcare, so people charge more for the same procedures and the same care. So the system is broken. It's still broken, even though, as you pointed out, it's been broken for a long time. But we have made progress. I mean, Hillary Clinton tried to do it, and then Barack Obama was able to make real strides there. We continue to get there, but right now, my daughter spends as much time filling out paperwork as she does seeing patients, and that's just not right. We also need to have a much more holistic. We have to reimburse for things that are holistic, that are just not, traditional fee-for-service healthcare procedures. We have to take care of people's mental health because that currently addresses stress, which causes other health problems. And there's a lot of stress in this world. We have a war. We're on the brink of war. We have what's happening in Eastern Europe. We have environmental issues that certainly cause health problems and also cause stress in people's lives. There are many answers to this problem, which has many facets to it as well. But one thing we can't do is ignore it, and we've got to focus on it and dig down deep, find solutions, and move things forward.
I have a question on the national security issue. I see a lot of things from China. China is probably one of the biggest threats to United States. While we're fighting war in Afghanistan and Iraq, China spent 20 years rebuilding the whole African continent's infrastructure. And right now, some of my friends in China, their kids are going through military trainings. They're encouraged each family to have 3 children. They stopped the one-child policy. Now they're training monks and nuns to militarily train them. And so it seems like while our country is very empathetic to a lot of things, you have our biggest nemesis is training their population to be more military ready for whatever the reason there is. So what do you think, do you see that being a big problem as far as national securities?
Yeah, well, it certainly puts more chess pieces on the board and makes things much more complicated. Certainly, the dynamics between Russia and if Putin and the Chinese team up could be a real problem for the United States. I think I live in Squirrel Hill. We have many, many Asians, many, many Chinese who live in our among us, and the in fact, I have a graduate student who, in doctoral student in computer science from China, who's lived with my family for the last almost 5 years. So I get to see China through a very different lens. I know that the people, China love our academic freedom. They love being here. They want to have one-to-one, people-to-people. We really want to maintain and continue that relationship. But those designs that you've described, the road, Belt and Road projects across the world, when China's having more people and more people that it has to care for, it has strategic interests that it needs to protect. So it's something to be concerned about, and it's something to be vigilant about. But we can't blame our problems on China. We have enough problems for ourselves. We have to take care of what's happening here and have a strong America. If we have a strong United States, then I think that will address a lot of the fears and threats that we have of that seem to be coming from China.
Yeah, I think my problem is the news media talks about so many things that divides the country. But the thing they don't talk about, if they start reporting what our nemesis are doing, that would probably help unite the country, right? Because, I mean, China has 1.5 billion people. They need resources. They need money. One of the easiest things historically is invade another country. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but, the weaker we are as a country, the better it is for our nemesis. So I think that's my frustration. I think the media should report on some of those things that probably will help unite us better,
Yeah, it's a great point, Sherry. It really is. There's a lot to think about. It's a big world. Europe right now is really under a lot of pressure, trying to figure out how to deal with the encroachments from Russia. We've been doing a lot here in Pittsburgh for Ukraine. I'm involved in a group, PERC, the Pittsburgh Ukraine Relief Collaborative Coalition, which is addressing, just trying to help orphan children throughout Ukraine who are in Ukraine and Poland now that have had to flee. These are kids who can't help themselves. Obviously, the United States government is going to open up our doors to many people from Ukraine. These kinds of humanitarian things that we do throughout the world make us friends, give us allies, help protect Europe from Russian encroachment. Putin is certainly a dangerous person, and he's destabilized the world. And so we still have many friends in Asia, in Japan, and throughout Europe. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to get into a world war.
Yeah.
It just seems that these days, those kinds of impulsive and extreme actions are really, anything's possible. We're living in very difficult times.
Yes, absolutely.
We need real leadership. We need real leadership in this country.
Yeah.
So Steve, going forward, what do you see as your role in the Democratic Party, kind of near term? Where would you like to see the party go?
Yeah. Well, Bob, I'm a Democrat through and through. I believe that when we get more people to register as Democrat, we elect more Democrats, and I don't know what my role is. I mean, right now I'm still after running for office is really an incredible takes a lot of courage, takes a lot of time and effort, not only of you but people that you've known in your life and your family and people you love, and you ask everyone to sort of come out, and I was really honored to get nearly 50,000 votes and lose by a couple of hundred out of 110,000. That doesn't mean that, if I had gotten a couple hundred more votes and had won, that I'd be a different person, or my responsibilities change, or my willingness to fix the problems are still here, and we still need whatever it was that I was going to bring to that table. And so right now I'm here at my law firm, Leach Tishman. I'm being a lawyer again. I'm putting my family first. It's not all about me right now. It's about them. I've got, 3 kids and a son-in-law and puppy, and my wife, an artist. They all deserve to be number one. So we're doing that, and I'm certainly going to do everything I can to make sure that Josh Shapiro is our next governor, because the threat to women's ability to control their lives and their bodies and their destinies is really hangs in that balance. Is his ability to veto legislation that is really burdensome and for these folks and for all of us. So I'm getting the strength to do that. It's summertime. I'm going to try to enjoy some of the summer, play a little golf. I have, as it was pointed out during the campaign, I have a golf course, River Forest. I'm wearing the shirt today. I'm hoping to play a little bit of golf. We are the first, the only majority women-owned golf course in Pennsylvania, and one of only 10 with black ownership in the country. So everyone's welcome there. Republican, Democrat, Westmoreland County, Allegheny County. Look, it was really a privilege to get to know so many people in the Mon Valley and in the South Hills and in Westmoreland County and the city of Pittsburgh. I really do wish, Summer's got an election and coming up in the fall, and I wish her a lot of success. And we ought to all come together, as we've been talking about today. You pointed out a number of really significant challenges that we have, and there's many that we haven't even touched on, and nobody can do it all. We have to get everybody to pick what they want and help to the extent they can, but things are looking up. The Pirates beat the Yankees last night, so anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
So Steve, I have 2 more questions. So number 1, what kind of law do you practice, and how can people reach out to you? And number 2, can you tell us how people can participate in that Ukrainian effort you were talking about?
Yeah. So, I was Banking and Securities Commissioner for Pennsylvania, so I do a lot in the securities, capital formation, regulatory area, government relations people, needing help from government. I've solved people's problems, whatever they are, whether my law firm, Leach Tishman, now has almost 150 lawyers, and we're all over the country, so we can help people here and throughout the United States. So largely a business firm, and I do employment law. We do real estate. We do help businesses, small businesses, large businesses, even help people who get into, trouble and criminal issues and family issues, and full service firm. It's when I started the practice of law firms did really one thing or another thing. It wasn't really like LA law where they sat at the table and people did everything across the board. But these days we do everything across the board. So it's a great firm that we built from just a few lawyers over the last 25 years, and I'm really thrilled to be back. It's a great place to come back to work. So I thank my partners and colleagues for keeping the place afloat and even getting bigger and better while I was away. In terms of Ukraine, I guess you had asked me, Sherry, how people can become involved in the Ukraine effort. Well, we every Thursday we meet for an hour to help direct people who have issues. We have the Ukrainian community here, the clergy here. We have members of Congress who participate. We have people in the banks, the law firms, and the refugee community. It's really been an extraordinary group of people who have come together to help direct people who want to help. And we have a website, and I don't know the exact web address, which I'm in big trouble for, but I'm going to find out and let you know, so you can let everyone know. But it's the PURC, P-U-R-C, Pittsburgh Ukraine Relief Coalition, and please check it out. We've already raised literally $100,000 for orphan relief, and then another significant amount of money for humanitarian relief. And I think we're looking at various projects in Ukraine right now to, as I said, to help these orphans. So we expect to publicize that on a higher level because there is this historic connection between that part of the world and our part of the world here in Pittsburgh. So there's a very special connection, and it's really wonderful that people have come together in Pittsburgh to try to aid these folks who are really under siege.
Where do you guys meet on Thursdays?
It's virtual.
Virtual. Okay.
It's virtual. We have periodic meetings in person. It's like everything these days, right? You never know who's going to get COVID from week to week. But we do get together because it's great to get together and see people. I think that's very important in everything that we all do. Certainly podcasts have become much bigger and better, and we have great ones like yours, which I think people can watch on their own time, and I hope many people will listen and hear. But I think one of the most important things that I've been able to do in my career and people who help me is directing people who have a desire to help to people who are helping and put them in a position to do their best work. And people want to give their time, their effort, their talent, their treasure. Let's help people do it because it takes all of us. It's going to take all of us.
Can you explain how you integrate your faith into your work and your political life and just, your worldview, I guess?
Sure. That's a great question, Bob. Certainly, as I've said it earlier, I think it's real important to separate, church and state. But I don't think there's anything wrong with having a belief in God if you choose to, and I'm Jewish, and so I've learned a lot from the Torah and the Talmud, and I don't limit myself to that. I mean, there's my daughter often fashions herself as a Jew boo, a Jewish Buddhist. My wife is into yoga in a very deep way. But so there's a lot of wisdom out there, East, West, and in between that we can learn from. But there are teachings, things like, in Judaism, which is, it's not our job to finish the task of mending the world, but neither are we free to desist from it. So you don't have to give up just because you can't solve it all, but you got to do what you can to move the ball forward. The fact that saving a single life is as important for saving an entire universe. And I believe that strongly, the dignity of people, and everyone has something special that they bring, no matter what their abilities or capabilities or lack of ability might be, or impediments. There's something that they can do, and we need to be able that we nurture that and find that in everyone, because you don't know who's going to be the person who's going to find the next vaccine or the cure to whatever, or that kind of thing, or have the energy. And there's a number of other sayings or tenets that I think help guide me. So I look to that and that wisdom. And frankly, I think that's one of the things that, because organized religion is really challenged these days. The churches are consolidating, synagogues are consolidating. People are threatened because they're afraid to go because of violence that may come. And that kind of coming together, that community activity that really starts, that's how we've taken care of our seniors for so long, by the religious communities that provided for those things. And either we're going to have to come together as a community or otherwise. But the other thing is, when kids went to Sunday school, or they learned ethics, they learned morals, and they needed those guideposts. And they may not think that they need them when they're 15, but when you get a little bit older that you're looking for that kind of guidance, and you need that. And if we have people who've thought those things through deeply, we might as well take advantage of their perspectives, and we can reject it or accept it, but at least they've certainly thought it through. We can't be superficial. You got to dig down. You got to drill down. You got to really try to find what the answer. It's more than a tweet. Now, there can be a lot of important knowledge in a tweet. It's like a fortune cookie, but it can be much more than that. But you've got to see what's behind it and test it and see what works. And so I'm really grateful as I mature, as I get through life. I'm grateful for that I do have thousands of years of Jewish thought to look to. So
Well, it's been a
Great.
real
Thank
pleasure.
you.
It was great. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Bob. Really enjoyed being on. I look forward to continuing the conversation, and thanks for doing this. It's really important.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.